So you see the one thing when you are doing valuation. So as far as valuation is concerned, in the coming topics we will discuss that valuation is an estimate of present worth of the property. So now, as an engineer or as an architect, you know, estimate varies from person to person. And second thing, the difference between estimate and valuation is that generally we do valuation, estimate for to ascertain the amount which you have to incur or spend incur on construction of a building or for purchasing a machine or something else. Here you have to find out the value. So as an engineer, you must understand the difference between estimate and value. Those who are already in the profession, they can very well explain the difference between estimate and value. Ji Raman Kumar Verma ji, can you explain the difference? Sir, unmute कीजिए please.
Sir, can I tell?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can tell.
So estimate is the amount of money incurred in creating an asset.
Yes, sir.
Value is the amount it will fetch when it is kept for sale in open market.
So this is one difference. Basically, value depends upon utility for a person. So it it is true that it is amount it will fetch in the open market, but it will depend upon the utility that asset has for that particular person. That a house which is in the vicinity of your house, you will be ready to pay more for that because it has more utility for which we will be discussing in the coming topics. And second thing is it will depend upon the purpose for you which you are doing valuation. When you are doing it for a banking purpose, different purposes for which as a value, it may be as a registered value or it may be as a value, you have to carry out the valuation. So generally we divide it into these parts: purchasing for investment. When you are when some real estate investor comes to you, he asks you that he want to invest in certain project, such amount, whether it will be viable or not. So this is where your services will be required for purchasing for an investment. Second is purchasing for self-occupation. And maybe some client wants to purchase a house and he want to ascertain that the amount he is paying is actually what he should pay, whether he's getting the asset at the right price. And next is revision of capital. So what happens is, let us suppose an industry was set up about in 1960. With the passage of time, already you have studied books of accounts. So every year, let us suppose a machine was purchased by that industry in 1970. and a building was purchased by that industry in 1970, let us suppose. And with the passage of time, every year a depreciation amount is entered in the books of account. The book value of that building will be very less what it will fetch in the market. So when there is requirement of revision of capitals in the books of accounts generally, your services may be required. And then interim reports of execution of building and other structures. So here, what you have to do, when someone asks for a loan, housing loan from the bank will ask you to prepare an estimate of construction. And during the construction, you have to give certificate at certain stages at the plinth level, at superstructure level, that such amount has been incurred up to this level. And after the completion of the building, you have to submit the amount, total amount which he has spent upon the construction of the building. That is interim report of execution of building or other structures. Then compensation for land acquisition. So you have already studied this topic, land acquisition in law journal. So when some land is acquired by the government for certain public purposes, government pay compensation for that. Though it is generally based upon the guideline rates and other criteria which you have already studied, but in certain cases, when when it comes to the buildings, constructed buildings, so there may be certain dispute between the authorities who are paying and the person who is getting compensation. Then there your services may be required to find the actual amount. And maybe in certain cases, in case of land values, where because guideline rates are generally not based upon certain conditions, it is generally prepared by revenue authorities. So when there some dispute, your services may be required. And then you have already studied arbitration when there is dispute between the contractor and the authorities or between two persons. One who is getting his work done and other one executor. So for that, in case of arbitration, arbitrator may appoint you to find out the value of the assets or value of the work already done by the executor. And then assessing property tax, income tax, wealth tax, gift tax, capital gains tax. So basically property tax is paid by the owner to the local government authorities, municipal corporation or other authorities. And there are certain procedures to find out the property tax. Many corporations have different procedures. But as a value, your services may be required to find out the value, assessed value, that is called assessed value. Then for income tax purposes, generally in case of buildings, when there is dispute that income tax authorities are saying that you have spent, let us say you have spent 50 lakh and in your books of account it is the only 30 lakh. Or in case of capital gains tax, so this is most important, capital gains tax. Capital gain tax is paid when you sell some immovable or movable asset. Generally immovable assets. In case of immovable asset, when a property is sold. So we will be discussing this in details, how this capital gains tax is calculated, and in the recent budget, you might have noticed that there is certain change in calculation of capital gains tax. There is a laws who and try during this budget session. So basically,
Indexation.
yes, it is an indexation which has been
Removed.
removed. Indexation has been removed, and we will discuss it in details when we'll be discussing how to calculate capital gains tax and what effect it has on the value of the property and how it will affect the tax liability of a person. So generally, in case when someone has held the property for a longer period, he will be losing or he will have to pay more taxes based upon the capital gains calculation as prescribed in recent years further. And then for selling, if someone has to sell his property to assess whether he will be able, how much amount he should actually, at which amount he should sell the property. And then for mortgaging purpose, this is for most important purpose for which as a value you have to do valuation generally for banks and financial institutions. They give loan based upon the values assessed by you. They mortgage the property and give loan to the consumer. And the amount which a bank gives as a loan is based upon the valuation submitted by you. So these are certain things for which you have to do valuation. Now we will discuss these things in detail. These are basic topics. Then for collateral security auctioning. So when someone has taken a loan and he is not able to pay back the loan, what will happen? The bank will sell that property through auction. So the security, this is collateral security. It is the asset which has been mortgaged with the bank. And when the bank has to sell that property, he will get a valuation done by an approved valuer. So generally in these cases, you have to calculate the value. This value is called distressed value. So then for insurance purposes, you have studied this insurance part too. In case of insurance, the premium is based upon the value of that asset. So what happens if the value of the asset is very high? Then you have to pay higher premium. But if you pay premium at a lower value of the asset, basically what happens is you have to declare the value of the asset for which you have to get insurance. And insurance authorities will not ask anything about that. At the time of insurance, they will do the insurance based upon the value declared by you. But what happens? At the time of compensation, when there is any problem and you have to get compensation, it has to be based upon the value at which you have insured. Yes, Pavam Kumar Shukla, what do you want to ask?
सर ये इंश्योरेंस पर्पज से सर हम लोगों से वैल्यूएशन तो कराते नहीं है सर कोई कंपनी वाले
सर करवाएंगे, क्यों नहीं करवाएंगे? जब आप उनको बताएंगे क्या होगा, बेसिकली व्हाट विल हैपन कि let us suppose you are doing valuation in 2021. Value of the asset as declared by the owner of the property is 50 lakh. Okay. This insurance is done for 3 years. You have discussed recently in the morning session. You have paid a premium. The owner has paid a premium based upon the value of the asset as 50 lakh. Now let us suppose there is some problem. There is fire broke in the building and there is a loss of 10 lakh in the building in 2024. Now, what the insurance authorities will do now? They will ask their loss assessor to find the value of the asset in 2024. Let us suppose in 2024, the loss assessor calculate the value of the asset without the effect of the fire. Asset as 60 lakh. Now, what will happen? The owner will not be able to get full 10 lakh compensation in such case. क्या आपने 50 लाख रुपए के लिए इंश्योरेंस करवाया था और आज उसकी वैल्यू 60 लाख हो और 10 लाख का सपोज फायर का लॉस हो गया तो उसको 10 लाख नहीं मिलेगा, उसको प्रोपोर्शनेटली दिस अमाउंट विल बी रिड्यूस्ड. तो अगर उसने ये 60 लाख के लिए उस 2021 में प्रीमियम पे किया होता तो उसको 10 लाख पूरा मिलना था. प्रीमियम इतना ज्यादा नहीं होना था जितना उसको अब कॉम्पनसेशन में लॉस होगा. These things we will discuss during the calculation of how this amount is calculated, how this value is calculated, so that he is able to. कि ऐसा भी नहीं है कि हम उसको दे दे के 70 लाख की इंश्योरेंस करवा लो आप तो उसको ज्यादा प्रीमियम देना पड़े, या 50 लाख की इंश्योरेंस करवा लो तो उसको कॉम्पनसेशन कम मिले. तो एक जो वैल्यू हमने निकालनी है जिसपे उसको प्रीमियम भी ज्यादा ना देना पड़े और उसको लॉस भी ना हो कॉम्पनसेशन के टाइम. दिस इज वेयर योर एक्सपर्टीज विल बी नीडेड. So mostly the persons they are not doing, but some of the companies or some of the persons who know these things, they do carry out the valuation from the approved values. तो अगर आप अपना जिस लोकल एरिया में रह रहे हैं उसमें आपका होल्ड है, आपकी के काम के बारे में जानते हैं लोग, तो नेचुरली दे विल कम टू यू फॉर इंश्योरेंस पर्पस आल्सो. ओके, एनी डाउट?
ठीक है सर, नो डाउट.
And then next is
सर एक बार और एक्सप्लेन कर दीजिए ना ये कॉन्सेप्ट मुझे.
तो मैडम आप फिक्र ना करें, ये सारी चीजें हम डिस्कस करेंगे आने वाले सेशन.
जी
अभी सिर्फ हम बेसिक समझ रहे हैं कि किस किस पर्पस के लिए वैल्यूएशन करें.
जी
ये जो आपने इंश्योरेंस अभी सुबह पढ़ा है वो सिर्फ बेसिक पढ़ा है, तो उसमें आप वैल्यूएशन में उसको कैसे वैल्यू फाइंड आउट करनी सो दैट ही इज able to get maximum compensation during any loss, and at the time of getting insurance he is not paying higher premium. This is where your expertise will be needed, and all these things will be taught in the coming sessions. So next is rent fixation, sorry, court fees, stamp partition, stamp duty. So many times when you have to file a case in the court, there you have there the litigant has to pay court fee, which is based upon the value of the asset. Let us suppose there is a marital dispute between husband and a wife about a property or any two persons, and the petitioner have to pay court fee based upon the value of that asset. And what should be the right value? For that your services may be. So court fees stamp duty. So whenever one person buy a property, he has to pay stamp duty to the revenue authorities. And when there is any dispute, your services may be required. But these are, in case of stamp duty, your services are rarely needed. But in case of partitions, let us suppose there are a building which is occupied, which is owned by three brothers, and each person wants his share in the property. So when there is partition among the owners of the property, you have to do valuation so that each and every owner get equal rights or the right as prescribed by them. So then it's for rent fixation. So what happens in the coming lectures, we will be discussing this, how this rent fixation valuation is done. Here you have to find out standard rent. As a value, you have to find out standard rent. Standard rent is the rent which is fixed by the code according to the laws of the code. So when there is dispute between landlord and the tenant, and the code may appoint you, or one of the owner or the tenant may appoint you to calculate the rent, standard rent according to the law. So how it will be calculated, we will be discussing in the coming lectures. These are the different purposes. So we can divide all these in these six categories, six major categories. One is for taxation, next is for finance, then for industrial purposes, then for statute, then for personal planning, then for social responsibility. So what is for taxation purposes? When you have to calculate the value for capital gain tax, when you have to calculate the value for income tax purposes, when you have to calculate the value for wealth tax. This wealth tax has been abolished. And now you have to do valuation for property tax, wealth tax, capital gain tax, income tax, house tax, etc. That comes under the heading of taxation. Then for finance, when someone has to get loan from the bank, then as in the case of housing loan, or by mortgaging his property, he get loan. Then your subsidies are required. This is the most important area where your subsidies are being used each and every day at a very higher level. And then for industrialist. So when let us suppose that an industrialist has to make an MOU with a foreign investor. So what he have done, he has to show that he has required assets with him. So in books of accounts, maybe that his industry is 15, 20 years old, and his books of accounts shows the value according to the depreciation of different assets. And he may revise his assets to show that, to make the other party more confident about his assets. That is called dressing, window dressing basically. So in that case, your services may be required. That is for industrialist purpose. Then for statute purpose, you have to pay stamp duty. Your subsidy, as we have already discussed, for stamp duty purposes, for calculating standard rent, for calculating the value for in case of arbitration, for calculating the value in case of land acquisition or acquisition purposes. These all comes under the heading of statute. Then for personal planning, then how much amount he has to, what is the net worth of a person, and in that case you have to calculate the value of his assets. That comes under the heading of personal planning. And then for social responsibility, So social responsibility is basically, let us suppose that an MP has given some amount out of his MP-led fund, and let us suppose he has given 5 crore, sorry, 2 crore, and to check whether the amount has been actual amount has been spent or not. Let us suppose he has given for construction of a road an amount of 2 crore. Now he want to check whether this amount of 2 crore has been actually spent or not. And he may ask you to calculate the amount spent upon the construction of that road. This type of valuation comes under the heading of social responsibility. These are the different purposes for which your services may be required. So we have already discussed all this in detail. For gift tax also, in case of tax, for whenever tax gift is given by one person to another person, in that case, some gift tax may have to be paid, and that tax is based upon the value of that asset. So that comes under the heading of gift tax. Capital gain tax we will be discussing in details, but as of now, you must understand that in case a property is sold by an assessee, he has to pay capital gain tax. There are two types of capital gain tax: short-term capital gain tax and long-term capital gain tax. We will discuss in detail. As of now, you must understand this may be a purpose of valuation. Then for partnership dissolution, when a company is owned by, let us say, 2 or 3 partners, they decided to dissolve their partnership. In that case, you may have to calculate the present worth of that asset, that company. That is partnership dissolution. Then for calculating the depreciation. So depreciation is very important for a value. So this we will discuss in detail. What is depreciation? Basically, it is loss in the value of an asset due to passage of time, due to wear and tear, due to usage. That is called depreciation. So there are different methods of calculating depreciation. All those who are in the valuation field, already in the valuation field, they know the subject very well. And for the newcomers, we will be discussing in the coming top lectures. Then seizure of jewelry, when there is any seizure of jewelry by the authorities to calculate the exact value, market value of the jewelry, your services may be required. These are especially for those persons who are doing gold valuation. And see, we at different times organize this with the collaboration of MSME, this gold valuation classes, and you may get these classes. Then for transfer of property, your services may be required. Then purchase, sale, takeover, or merger. When someone has to purchase a property, when someone has to sell a property, when a company has to take over the other company, or when 2 companies are decided to merge, your services may be required. Purchase, sale, takeover, or merger. And then for term loan or cash credit facilities, when you have to get loan from the bank by mortgaging your asset. Then when you have to get, let us suppose a contractor has got contract to do some work, he has to give bank guarantee to the authorities that he is financially sound and he will be able to spend the required amount. He has to submit bank guarantee. So this bank guarantee may be cash or it may be that he has to get loan from the bank in the form of bank guarantee by mortgaging a property. In that case, your services may be required. It may be building, it may be a machinery, or it may be anything else. And then for window dressing, we have already discussed what is window dressing. Then devaluation of rupees. So many times the devaluation of rupees it means value of to devalue the value of the rupees, the value of the rupee with respect to some foreign currency. Let us suppose that today $1 is equals to, let us suppose that $1 is equals to 80 rupees. $1, let us suppose today $1 is 80 rupees. Now what will happen? If it is devalued, whether $1 will be higher than 80 rupees or lower than 80 rupees.
Higher than 80 rupees.
So it will be higher than, it may be 81, it may be 82, whatever it may be, does not matter, but it will be that $1 will be higher than the present value in terms of rupees. So many times this devaluation is done by the government in certain cases. Then in case of new issues by a company, so here also the company may go for window dressing of their assets in their books of accounts. Your services may be required. Then advance against work contract. Then incentives. What happens is many times in some companies, when some industry is in the backward area, it is to be industrial machinery is allowed to be shifted without loss of incentives. However, agency offering these incentives have incorporated a condition that value of such machinery should not exceed permissible percentage of total complied in the industry. So incentives, let us suppose in case of small scale industry. In case of small scale industries, many incentives are given by the government. But the value of the total assets in case of small scale industry should not be more than prescribed. Let us suppose government has prescribed that a company whose assets are less than 50 lakh will be maybe described as small scale industry. And in that case, your services may be required to find out the asset value of the assets of that company. To check whether the assets are more or less than 50 lakh. Then security deposit for electric company. Whenever a company has to get electric connection,
Please hold.
have to pay an amount in the form of security deposit. Many times this amount is much higher, and company does not have cash in hand. So he may mortgage some asset to the company, electric company, in form of security deposit, for which valuation will be done by you. Then for foreign collaboration, when a company has to collaborate with a foreign company to calculate the value of the present value of their assets, your services may be required. Then when a company purchases a machinery from a foreign country, they have to pay custom duty. This custom duty is based upon the value of that machine. Many times what the industrialists are doing, they are purchasing old machinery from foreign countries, which may be used in our country. So in that case, you have to calculate the value of that machinery because old machinery cannot have the same value as the new machine. And well, on the basis of that value, custom duty has to be paid. Then for octroi, you know, the octroi this has been abolished in most of the areas of the country. But in case where octroi is still prevalent, as value octroi is paid upon the value of the machinery or asset, and your services may be required in that case also. Then for auction and for rent, we have already discussed. Similarly, for SSI registration, and as we discussed, where there is no bill, let us suppose you an industrialist has bought a machine which has been assembled by a local manufacturer. That manufacturer has taken a motor from some other source, other parts from some other source. He has assembled a machine and has given to the industrialist. So in that case, when there is no bill, you have to calculate the value. For services may be required in that case to find the value of that machine. Then adequate and timely insurance, we have already discussed it. For stamp duty, we have already discussed. Then for land acquisition, and then for personal planning, we have already discussed that. For personal planning through will, when a person has to form a will to distribute his asset among his successors, your services may be required. Then for visa purposes, so when someone has to get a visa for a foreign country, to show that what is his net worth, your services may be required to find out the value of the assets held by that person. Then for housing loan purposes, then for family partition, we have already discussed. Then in case of divorce settlement, so if in case of divorce of a property, if a property is good and sufficient, it is invariably valued before settlement is made. So generally, in case of divorce settlement, when there is divorce case between husband and a wife, you have to calculate net value. So in the coming topic, we will be discussing what is net value. Net value is basically, let us suppose that the value of the asset you calculate as 50 lakh, but that asset has been mortgaged with the bank, and the husband has or the party has taken 20 lakh from the bank as loan. So net value of the asset will be 30 lakh. So you have to remember, many times when you have to do valuation, generally many of us get these type of work from foreign countries, especially in Canada and USA and England. When there is this dispute, divorce settlement for Indians, for the persons who are holding Indian properties also, you have to do valuation. So in that case, remember, you have to calculate the net value of the asset, not the market value of the asset. And then social responsibilities we have already discussed. So this is all about different purposes of valuation. If you have any doubt, we can discuss it here. Any doubt?
सर मार्केट वैल्यू जो रहती है किसी भी प्रॉपर्टी की, किसी बिल्डिंग की, अगर हम बात करें कि एक मार्केट वैल्यू है, और अगर हम एक मतलब जैसे हमारा लोकल अथॉरिटीज हमें एक स्टैंप ड्यूटी रेट्स देती है किसी भी एरिया के लिए, उसकी कंस्ट्रक्शन कॉस्ट भी उसमें रहती है और उसकी लैंड कॉस्ट भी रहती है। अगर हम लैंड कॉस्ट को हटा दें तो मार्केट वैल्यू, सॉरी सॉरी हटाना नहीं है, मार्केट वैल्यू और उस स्टैंप जो रेट्स रहते हैं उसमें हम कैसे देख सकते हैं, मतलब उनको कैसे कंपेयर कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि काफी डिफरेंस रहता है मार्केट गवर्नमेंट रेट्स में और मार्केट रेट में।
तो वो चीजें हम आने वाले टॉपिक्स में डिस्कस करेंगे कि कैसे करना है आप।
ओके ओके सर,
क्योंकि
ओके
स्टैंप ड्यूटी जो है वो दैट इज ओनली फॉर स्टैंप ड्यूटी पर्पजेस। जो कलेक्टोरेट रेट है दीज आर नॉट मार्केट वैल्यू एज ऑफ नाउ, यू मस्ट अंडरस्टैंड दिस थिंग।
ओके सर,
Collectorate rate are basically for paying stamp duty. So basically property, let us suppose कि एक प्रॉपर्टी है, आपका और मेरा उस प्रॉपर्टी का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हो गया कि आपने सेल करनी है, मैंने परचेज करनी है। अब मार्केट में उसकी वैल्यू हो सकता है 50 लाख हो, लेकिन हम दोनों दोस्त हैं तो आप कह रहे हैं कि मैं आपको अपनी प्रॉपर्टी 30 लाख में दे दूं। गवर्नमेंट हमें इस चीज के लिए फोर्स नहीं कर सकती कि आपको 50 लाख की प्रॉपर्टी है तो 50 लाख पर ही बेच सेल को। लेकिन इस चीज तरीके से क्या होता है कि लोग जो है सेल परचेज जो होती है बहुत लोअर प्राइस पे हो जाती है, तो गवर्नमेंट को रेवेन्यू लॉस होता है। उन्होंने एक मिनिमम प्राइस फिक्स कर दिया कि इसके नीचे नहीं होगा, इस प्राइस पे आपकी डीड जो है रजिस्टर्ड होगी। परचेज एक्चुअल परचेज प्राइस मे बी हायर, इट एक्चुअल परचेज प्राइस मे बी लोअर देन द स्टैंप ड्यूटी प्राइस। Generally it is lower, but it may generally it is higher, but it may be lower also in certain cases. So these are the things which we will be discussing in the coming lectures. As of now, we have to concentrate upon the purpose of valuations. If you have any doubt about the purposes of valuation, we can discuss it.
थैंक यू।
So what's the difference on net value or market value?
Net value and market value we will discuss in the coming lectures. There are different types of valuations. We will discuss all types of different types of value in the coming lectures.
Okay, sir.
If you have any doubt about purpose of valuation, we can discuss.
Sir,
So another short topic,
करना
which is
चाहे नहीं understand.
very